Because if you think of the cosmos as this extraordinarily complex mechanism which seems to work perfectly well without any human managing it, one of the questions becomes, in the face of the cosmos, what do I matter? What's for me to do? And the answer is to harmonize with it. If you synchronize with the cosmos, then, to use your word, you'll be happy. And my word would be content. You can't take your own success too personal.
Wow.
If you take your success too personal, it'll keep you from your next success. Consciousness, which is what I talk about a lot, is no substitute for competence.
Ooh.
Okay, so you got to be both conscious and you have to be competent. And to be competent, you got to do the work. It's no longer optional to look at healing the planet as if it's a spectator sport. Okay, you are in the game whether you know it or not. And if you're in the game, you better play it. Because if you just sitting in the stands waiting to see what happens, you can just kiss your sweet, you know what, goodbye. You ain't gonna make it. You just aren't gonna make it.
Hello, Green Chatters. Welcome to another episode here on the Green Living Chat podcast. My name is David Osimensa. I'm your host on the show, and I had the honest pleasure interviewing Rinaldo Brutoco, who is the founder and CEO of the World Business Academy since the 1980s. We had a super interesting conversations about the imminent loss of civilization when it comes to climate change conversation. There is so much in this conversation. I cannot wait for you to hear it. More details in the show notes. Let's get into it. Hi, Rinaldo. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. You are one person that is super difficult to interview because your background just cannot be contained in one episode. But I'm super excited that you could make time for this conversation and looking forward to all the exciting things that we're going to review today. Rinaldo, just to kickstart, what brings you happiness?
What brings me happiness? Well, a good question. I don't know that I do happy so much as I do pleased. I do satisfied. It makes me feel good if something I've worked on that's important happens. That's what really brings me a little bit of joy. Happiness is. I don't travel in that kind of a world, and I don't think that's a good thing. I look at my work as what matters to me, and if I can achieve the objectives I'm working on, then I feel pretty good. And I guess you could say happy, but to me, it's more about satisfaction. I'm pleased, particularly given how long I've been articulating outlier theories, most of which have come true.
Yeah.
I got used to being involved in things and wanting to see them happen, and frustrated that they don't happen fast enough. And so when something goes right, I'm really pretty pleased.
I can see that evidently in all the works that you're doing. And I remember when we had our prep chat, after the prep chat, you challenged me a lot to start thinking deep about the things that I do. Do I want change that quickly? Do I demand change that strongly?
Right.
And sometimes I wonder because, for our podcast, we have a lot of people, young people listening to our podcast, mostly within the age of 18 and 35. The big question is when we interview people, we get feedback, hey, how do these people get to know what they wanted to do at that early age? Why are they so passionate about what they do? So my question to you, Rinaldo, is at which point growing up did you realize you want to do what you are doing now?
Well, I didn't. That's a very good question. I never tried to put a face on what I'm doing now. I have always, since childhood, wanted to make a difference. Yeah. And I learned a long time ago the best way to do that is to sort of ask, how can I serve? Because if you think of the cosmos as this extraordinarily complex mechanism which seems to work perfectly well without any human managing it, one of the questions becomes, in the face of the cosmos, what do I matter? What's for me to do? And the answer is to harmonize with it.
That's it.
If you synchronize with the cosmos, then, to use your word, you'll be happy. And my word would be content. I started down this path of how can I serve at a very young age, and really got into what's called Christian mysticism. So that's where you go past, religion
Yep.
to where essence is. Um, rather than Bible thumping, it's the cosmic Christ, so to speak. It's the difference between worldviews, et cetera.
Right.
In wanting to do that, in wanting to be able to make my life meaningful, I just kept looking at what was next there to do to serve. I got there by an interesting process. I didn't get. I just kept asking, "Who am I? What do I care about?" And I answered the question to myself, and then I asked another question that came out of that. And I just kept asking until I finally got to the last question. And the last question is always, "How can I serve?" Because if it isn't that, you're putting yourself in juxtaposition against the cosmos,
Yeah.
not doing your very best to be in harmony with it. And so for me, that was the goal. And it never ceases to amaze me, David, how well I have done financially.
Yeah.
That was not the goal. It's never been the goal. And how successful my companies have been, because that was never the goal. The goal was, how can I help? And if it worked out, great. And why I share that with you is because some of the answers I got to questions like that were back, say, 35 years ago. I could help people be more conscious of what they ate and drank. So I got into organic food. Well, if you got in the organic food industry 35 years ago, you did well.
Right.
That's how I got into pay TV originally in 1972. How can I help? Well, I got to break the stranglehold of NBC, CBS, and ABC. How do I do that? I don't know. How can I help? Well, in the door walks an opportunity to create the alternative, which ended up being called pay television.
Right.
And I co-founded the first pay TV company in the world in 1972. And there have been any number of incidents like that in my life, which are not explainable by traditional career projections. They're just what happened to me along the way by keep asking, how can I help? The other thing I've always done, which may or may not be wise, and I'm not saying this is for everybody, whenever I got really good at something, I've done that. I should now look at what's next. Most people, when they do something well, particularly if they're well compensated for it, they want to keep doing more and more. And they become better at it, more famous at it, whatever. But it does become repetitive. And my theory has always been, once I've done it a few times, anybody can copy
Yeah.
it. I'm sort of like a frontiersman. I'm out there looking at the next place where the consciousness is curving. And so I would recommend to people, if you come at life with that detachment, it's almost impossible to fail. And someone asked me once, well, gee, what if doing that you hadn't have made a lot of money? And I said, well, I still would have been happy because I was doing what I love. If people do what they love, they're happy. And even though the word happy to me is a little strong,
Yeah.
content. I'd be pleased. I'd be okay. I'm okay right now. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
I would find really difficult is if I had sold my soul out for a paycheck or for an ideology or because someone waved a prestige, power, or appointment in front of me and distracted me, literally like a flag in front of a bull. I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense. And so I can honestly say I've never had a day in my life where I have worked for a living. Everything I've ever done is like, okay,
Interesting.
time to go do that. And what I'm supposed to do shows up. I do it. Compensates me well usually.
Yep.
And that may check could just been a lucky 45-year run, 50-year run, but I think it's realistic to expect that it'll keep happening for me. I certainly hope so. And I never credit myself with that success. That's the other thing. You can't take your own success too personal.
Wow.
You can't, because if you take your success too personal, it'll keep you from your next success.
Interesting.
What I often tell people, young people going into business, the absolute, and I've had the good fortune of working with a lot of really talented, people, multi-billionaire, people who were major players in politics, players in all kinds of different fields. And the one thing that seemed consistent about all of them was if you were really good at something and you kept getting better and better at it, the last hurdle you had to jump was ego.
Ooh.
So used to seeing how good you were, you lost track of what you were doing. You lost track of what the target was, and you became more ego gratification centered than result oriented. Okay, so what I always tell people, and I've seen some really good men fall in the second or third of their life because they let their ego become engaged, and that's particularly true in business.
Yep.
Okay, because you have a lot of power, and it's pretty much unrestrained. I mean, it's your own conscience and the law, but that's about it. You can do an awful lot that can affect people's lives for better or worse. And if you start taking it too personal, you'll start thinking you're the reason it's happening, as opposed to saying you're harmonizing with the universe. That's what's trying to get to happen. You're just assisting. You see yourself more as a midwife than a mother.
Right. Wow. There is just so much to unfold in this. I don't know whether we should just redirect our focus and just talk about life because there's just so much. But I need to make sure I focus and keep on our theme. But I'm just gonna get back to some of the things you talked about. Oh my goodness, there's just so much. Anyways, share a vision, build network, and heal the planet. Does that sound familiar to you? You've been doing this since 1985. Building and trying to encourage and trying to move towards action-based and science-based reactions. What have you learned towards our approach in healing the planet? What has worked and what hasn't worked?
First of all, when we coined that phrase in '85, it's turned out to be more true than I even realized.
Right.
As if you can share the vision, if you can get people to see what it is that you see, then you can build your network of other people who see it too. And with that, you can heal the planet. But it takes lots of us doing that. We could apply that to today real easily, like what's going on in the United States, which is a massive tragedy of monumental proportions. And as my Hindu friends tell me, though, it's a good thing. We have now passed through Kali Yuga, so that's the destruction, and next comes rebirth. So I'm looking forward to the rebirth part. The destruction part is really unpleasant. No, I want to just comment that what I've learned that works is never taking yourself so seriously that you think you're doing it. And I'll give you an example. If you were in the top of a building, 35-story building, okay, and it's about sunset, so you're standing in the window and the sun is setting behind you, and you've got your arms out like this, okay, it will look like you're the risen Christ because there'll be light flowing around you like you just, right?
Right.
But the truth is, you're blocking the light. Okay. The truth is you aren't enlightened, you're blocking the light. So what's the light? Well, the light is what you want to let come in by getting yourself out of the way. What does yourself out of the way mean? It means scrubbing as much of your ego off the window as you can. So what's trying to get through can get through in the best possible form.
Interesting.
And if your ego's there, blocking it, then you're not the risen Christ, you're actually blocking the light that's trying to get the job done.
Yep.
So what I've learned is what works best is get out of the way. Hold your intention. And by the way, just a footnote here, just so people don't think this is all just airy-fairy. Obviously, I believe you have to really apprentice in your craft, whatever that craft is.
Yeah.
So I do the work. I went to very top law school. I graduated in the very top of my class. I became Order of the Coif. I taught in graduate schools of business. I got double degrees in economics and philosophy. And I've worked really hard at every industry I've gone into to learn it and then to do well at it and then to move along. You can't get, what's the word I'm looking for? Consciousness, which is what I talk about a lot,
Yep.
is no substitute for competence.
Ooh.
Okay, so you got to be both conscious and you have to be competent. And to be competent, you got to do the work. So if people said, well, I'm just going to go, I'll sit on a log and intend all this will happen, that's a little airy-fairy for me. For me, it's like, no, what skill set do I need to develop I don't currently have that'll give me the ability to share the vision or heal build the network, heal the planet. And that those skill sets accumulate over time. And the further along in life you get, the better you become at it because you can keep refining your craft.
Yeah.
But even as a young person, if you in your 20s, if you come at an awareness, in fact, I call it third-party situational awareness. Here's what I mean. If you see, think of yourself, David, and you're in the front row middle seat of this incredible play that opened on Broadway. Really got an incredible view. I mean, boy, have you got a seat, right? And there's all these characters on the stage, and one of them looks exactly like you. And you're watching this character, David, interact with all the other characters. Because David's just one of the characters. If you can do that, if you can see yourself as a third party would observe you on that stage, that's third party awareness.
Yeah.
So what happens is that you become then your own constant tutor. You're constantly giving yourself feedback on how you can improve. And, I share with people, it's a lot to do to not get discouraged. Because if you really watch everything you do carefully,
Yeah.
you'll see so many things you could have done better.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel good. But at the same time, but there was a very interesting man, particularly people going into business should know about him. His name was Ray Anderson. And Ray was a dear friend of mine, a member of the Academy, and he is the man who invented carpet tile. And he did it because he realized that as the head of a carpet company down in Georgia, it was creating all these carpets that would end up in the landfill. And in those days, it was probably the number one thing in the landfills back about 40 years ago.
Right.
So Ray decided, well, hey, why do we throw away a whole hole with a carpet if it's only worn down in the middle? So he came up with carpet tile. And obviously, he got very wealthy doing that because carpet tile took over the world, right? Okay. So Ray had this great saying. He said, I'm climbing Mount Sustainability. And by that, he meant I'm trying to get to the top of how to have a more sustainable society. And the one thing I do is carpets. How can I contribute what I do with carpets to that goal? And that's how I came up with carpet tile, just to give you some idea how this all works. Okay. In a speech he gave, a few years before he died at an Academy event, he said, one of the things people always ask me is, what gave me the courage to keep going, to keep trying to climb to the top where I could say, rugs going into landfills will not be the biggest problem we have, when it was such a massive problem. And he said, the only way you can do that is if you stop periodically on your climb up Mount Sustainability.
Right.
You look back down where you came.
Right.
If you see how far you came, you go, oh, okay, I can do this. And then you keep going. Whereas, he said, if you only look at the summit, if you only look at the goal, you'll become discouraged.
Yep.
So it's important to look back and reflect. Where did I come from? How to get here? And what did I do right? What did I do wrong? If you're like most people, when you're young, you do an awful lot of things that you could have done better, clearly.
Yeah.
But for people who do it with the best of intentions, at least they know they didn't intentionally hurt anybody or anything. And then what was there to be learned? And what I do with people for the last 20 years now, when I'm trying to get a thought across to somebody they think could really help,
Yeah.
I say, I want you to think this is a teachable moment. So don't think it is something that went wrong. Think of it as something, okay, what are we going to learn from this?
Yeah.
All the greats, particularly in business, I know the great ones, I mean, the Ray Dalios would say, you don't beat yourself up for making mistakes. You notice them.
Yep.
You change. But you don't beat yourself up because that didn't get you.
Yeah.
That's abuse, self-abuse. What you really want to do is just to learn from it and then keep moving.
Yeah.
And that's what Ray was saying. Look down the mountain, see how far I came. Okay, I get it that far. I can go the rest of the way. And I think for young people, that's a good thing to remember because when you're looking at what's going to happen to me for the next 40 years of my life because you're 20, it's a challenge. In fact, you know what I call that? Future tripping. Future tripping. Tomorrow hasn't happened. Yesterday is gone. All you got is now.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
You got now. So what am I doing in the now? Am I doing what I love? Okay. Or am I selling out? Am I doing what pays, even though I don't love it? And I always tell people, that's the easiest one there is. Stop. If you're not doing what you like, stop doing it. you're better off, pushing a broom or flipping burgers than you are doing a job that is not what you want to do.
Right.
And you got to trust.
Yeah.
You have got to trust that what's there for you to do will show up if you have an open mind to it.
Wow.
If you clean the window, get the ego out of the way, the light comes through, and you go, oh, I get what the light's trying to tell me. I get what the light means. And then you translate the light into something. And when you do that, it can be very powerful. So that doesn't work is putting your ego self in front of what it is that you're here to do and why. Never take a dive. There's nothing in the world that's worth your compromising your personal integrity for. Nothing.
Yeah.
No, the most common thing in business is to compromise your personal integrity for money. Number one thing that goes wrong in business, right?
Yeah.
So how are you going to heal the planet doing that? In fact, how are you going to build a network doing that? Because it's about you at that point, not about us.
Yeah.
And there's really no vision there. You're just doing what you think will make you money. And so you can't even tell people the truth about what you're doing because you don't want to tell people, I'm just doing this to get rich and I don't give a damn. That's not going to build a network.
Right.
That's not sharing a vision. If you're okay with where it comes out, anything is, the world is your oyster.
That's right. Interesting. There is another phase of what all the things that you're talking about. Really encouraging, but up to 2026, I'm still very shocked that we're still debating, in spite all the evidence of climate variation or climate change, all the things that we are seeing physically, natural disasters, and all the periodic occurrence. Some are torn between the idea of it's sort of a catastrophic occurrence that happens from time to time, in spite all the evidence that science is producing and saying, some are saying it's a myth, and some are saying that we shouldn't be worried about this. And even among scientists, the data is split across. Do you still?
No, it isn't. No, it is not. That is fallacy.
I have seen scientists sort of still debating the fact that data is not consistent and we shouldn't believe the things that are happening.
David, I got to tell you something. There's a fool for everything.
There we go.
So if you want to find somebody who claims to be a scientist that is articulating a policy that's even close to the fact that there's a doubt about climate change,
Yep.
tune them out because they can't help you. They put blinders on. And my mother, who was not an educator, I used to call her peasant wisdom. One of her pieces of peasant wisdom were, there are none so blind as those who will not see. If you've chosen for whatever reason not to see, you will not see.
Yep.
So let's talk about climate change.
Right.
There is not even a reasonable argument on climate change. So when someone starts to argue about climate change, they go, you know what? I can't help you.
That's it.
Can't help you. Yeah, you can believe what you want, and God bless you. It doesn't change the outcome. It's not worth debating because there's nothing to debate. It's like, would you debate if I said to you, David, the sun rises in the west? Would you debate me on that?
No.
No, Ronaldo, it rises in the east. And so you think, Ronaldo, are you having a problem today? You really think the sun, you're going to convince me the sun rises in the west? How can that be, Ronaldo?
Right.
Well, because well, anything you say after you told me you believe the sun can rise in the west, I don't have the time for it. I have time for honest conversations.
Yep.
We can talk about the speed at which it's happening.
Yep.
We can talk about the causes that
Right.
We can talk about what remedies can be. We can talk about a lot, but we can't talk about the fact.
Yep.
Who was I forget which politics said, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not to your own facts. Climate change is real, indisputable. The fact I've been saying it for 25, 30
Yep.
years, not why I'm saying it. I'm saying because it's true.
Yep.
And in fact, we just did a thing. If you want, I'll send you a copy. I did a paper in 2019 on climate change.
Yep.
It's called the Methane Accelerator. Just about 1 month ago, a fellow of the Academy offered, he says, Ronaldo, I'd love to see what happened to all the data you put in that article. Like, how did you do? Did you guess right? Did you guess wrong? Well, so he a re-edit of the whole paper. And sent it to me. I got it about a little over a week ago, and I was absolutely shocked. I was not only accurate, unbelievably accurate, but I was conservative.
No
Things that I
way.
said could be as bad or worse. No, and why do I share that with you? Not because I got an ego investment in it, no, but I knew when I wrote it, it was probably right.
Yeah.
But when they took 2025 data to a paper I wrote in 2019, and they said, we're going to update your data to 2025. And the data updated made a stronger case than I made in 2019. So I share that with you because it's a climate change story
Yeah.
that the paper's about. It's really about something more than that. It's about if you are wrong about something, you've got to be the first guy to admit it, because then you can move on.
Right.
If your ego gets attached to being right, then how are you going to let the corrective information in?
Right.
And that happened with a lot of people in climate change. They got used to hearing them said there's a question, there's science on both sides. No, there isn't. There hasn't been science on both sides for at least 10 years, not realistically. So anybody who says there's science on both sides either A, isn't doing their homework, or B, they're just stuck.
Yeah.
And frankly, they don't matter anymore. Their opinion doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, because that's like saying the sun rises in the west.
Right.
Well, if you think that, my attitude is, God bless. I hope they find a very comfortable room for you with padded walls. But I can't help you, because if you're going to start with that belief system, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And remember, belief systems are what drive humans.
Yeah.
Belief systems, okay? So if you take some of the, and I'll just give you an example. One of the great belief systems of all time, the sun revolved around the earth. And that was important to the Catholic Church because they wanted you to believe that because God was there for the humans on the earth, that meant that we were in charge and the sun revolving around us, and everything was about human centric.
Yeah.
So along comes one guy who goes, I'm not sure it works that way. He writes this book on the celestial spheres. And Copernicus was his name, by the way, a Polish astronomer.
Yeah.
And he gives 2 copies of the book to 2 of his friends. And he said, don't publish it till I'm dead, because if you do, they'll come kill me. And he was right.
Right.
The Catholic Church would kill him, right? Because it was to the prayer box. If humans don't need the church to get along in the world,
Yep.
what's the church going to do? Because that's who their customer is, right? So Copernicus concluded correctly, the earth revolves around the sun, and that in turn revolves around that, and he started seeing the cosmos for what it was. That was the first human being in history that ever had that idea.
Interesting.
Now, yeah, big idea, huge idea, revolutionary idea. So revolutionary, everything has changed since then.
Yep.
Given that that's the case, if you were the Copernicus in this example, I think you should do what he did. You'd write it up, you'd put it out there, you'd tell people don't publish it until I'm dead. And the Inquisition will come get me. But in my case, I published the stuff, I put it out there, and then I let it percolate. And that's what Share the Vision is all about, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm sharing what I believe to be true, and I have a very rigorous standard for what I will accept as true.
Right.
And as you know, I do my research. I'm really thorough on the research. Then I'm going to put it out. And if people read it and it helps them to see something that they need to see, great.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that can open us to a network. We could have something in common.
Yeah.
And if we are open to a network, any network I'm in have as an objective is heal the planet. And by that, I mean the biosphere. Right? The planet's perfectly fine. It's the biosphere that's
Yeah.
the trouble. It's the biosphere we depend on.
Yeah.
So what I say to people, particularly people who are under 40, you will not survive climate change. The vast majority won't survive. Yeah. So if you don't want to die a very ugly climate change related death in a dystopian world, better right now start. We don't have the time anymore to reduce climate change.
Yeah.
We must reverse it.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. And sorry that it's true. I wish it weren't true, but it is true.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to know more information, we go to my website. They can, the Methane Accelerator is the paper.
Yeah.
I hope the new version up by now, but the old one still is accurate. And what it says is that human civilization, as you know it, will end before the end of the century.
Yeah.
So if you are 20 years old today, the odds are human civilization, as you know it, will end before you're dead. In fact, probably be the cause of your death.
Yep.
So if that's the case, now let's stay with me for 1 second. If that is the case, in fact, if that was even 10% of a chance, let alone 100% certainty, 10% of a chance, wouldn't you want to do everything you possibly could to
Right.
reverse that?
Yep.
And yet no one does. So what's that about? A couple different things. For some people, they'd rather put their head in the sand. It's just too hard to think about it.
Right.
For other people, it requires too much data, too much thinking,
Yep.
too much study, so they're too lazy. For others, it flies in the face of their personal goal, which is to get rich as fast as they can. For others, it basically defies the standard by which they evaluate their own success.
Yep.
You know, what was that saying? He who has the most toys wins. The idea that if you accumulate enough stuff, you won. And I always go to people, Tutankhamun had a lot of stuff, but he did not win, as I recall.
Yep.
And he couldn't take it with him. That's why we found it 1,000 years later
Yep.
in his tomb. So you want to really go at this with the appreciation. We are here for a short period of time. We're only on this earth for a short period of time. I think if you look at it from, and I do, from a spiritual as opposed to a religious.
Right.
So I already said I'm a bit in being a Christian mystic, meaning the mystical reality as opposed to the dogmatic.
Yep.
If you really are willing to hold why you are here and want to live it to the best of your ability and are willing to trust that that will be a good outcome for you, the odds are you'll relate to what I'm about to say. There was a very, very famous man, Teilhard de Chardin. He was a French worker priest in the 30s. Wrote some brilliant, and one of the conclusions in there, the short one was, we are not humans occasionally having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having human experiences. And that puts it into a much different context, because that means the 60 or 70 or 80 years I got on the planet is not the whole thing. It's just that section. And the older you get, the more you look at these things. Okay. And if you could start looking at them in your 20s and not be morbid, it is very likely you'll have the same level of success I had. Now, it may not be the same monetary success, because the world you go into might be the world of theater, the world might be the world of politics, whatever the world is. But if you go at it where you are subordinating your own ego to what it is you're really trying to do, that you think you're here to do, that's unique for you to do, and you're willing to do whatever it is, okay? The joke I used to tell when much younger is, look, I do dishes and I change diapers. I have no pride in this thing. Hey, you want to get humble? Change diapers. So I think if you look at it that way, if you look at what can you do with your talent, why you keep asking, why am I here? What am I doing here? Not in an obsessive way, but in a constructive way. And you see yourself as you're taking this very long graduate course called the development of David as a human being, or a development of David as a spiritual being, having a human experience. Right. And if you look at that, I think you'll find that the rewards are enormous. You can never predict what they'll be, and I wouldn't want to try. I would not want to try to predict what they'll be, but they'll be enormous. Will be every step of the way. You'll be getting closer to who David wants to be. It's possible for David to be it. And please don't let anybody listen to this stay in a job that they don't like. Death, the death knell.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. Like you just blocked everything. I'm still trying to unfold everything, I'll take you back a little bit. We started this conversation, you mentioned life has always been oriented by asking questions over and over. And I just want to know that our reaction towards the climate and the earth and conservation, stewardship and everything, is it because we are not asking the right questions?
I got one for you. Ready? And David, this is when you consider somebody in the back of a postcard. You'll never get the right answer if you ask the wrong question.
That's it. That's it.
No, if you don't want the right answer, ask the wrong question. So what are the wrong questions? The wrong questions are obvious. And so are the right questions, by the way. How do I get richer is not a right question. How can I serve? That's the right question. What can I do to put more of myself into my relationship
Right.
is the right question. How can I get her to do what I want her to is the wrong question. And if anybody's ever been married who listens to it, they know it's a stupid question because it isn't going to work anyway. No, I think, and it doesn't matter. I meant that in the sense of
Right.
a life partner, but it's true in anything. And I'll give you've got to have the right partners in life.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean marital partners, but if you find out that a business partner is not playing it straight, you got to leave. I don't care what the cost is.
That's it.
Got to leave. Got to leave because you'll never get a straight answer. You'll always you get a curveball thrown at you, and you won't know where the curve is. So I always say to people, look, ask the right question sincerely and honestly, and you will get an answer. And if it requires a second question, ask it again.
That's it.
And just keep going till the answer becomes, oh, okay, that's the answer. I've had some of the most extraordinary things in my life happen because I asked the right question. Remember one time in when was it? Now it's a long time ago. Gosh, about 30 years ago.
Right.
At least 30 years. I remember asking myself, because I'd been somewhat successful at that point, and I had been helping some good things happen, and I was ready to take on something else. And I asked myself the question, if I could help anybody in the world, just because I wanted to help them to get what they're doing done, who would that be? And within a split second, the answer came back to me, Mother Teresa.
Ooh.
So I thought, that's interesting. And if it was a male, who would it be? And the answer came back instantly, Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev.
What was going on at that time?
Well, Gorbachev was in the process of unwinding the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Mother Teresa was in the process of trying to get the word out about what she was doing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I've been thinking about it. And long story short, I had the great good fortune of working with Mother for the last 10 years of her life.
Wow.
And I never made a fee on that. It would have been a horrible thought to make money off Mother Teresa. But I had this really unusual opportunity to get to live up close with, for 10 years, a living saint. I mean, somebody who was clearly playing with a whole other deck that I didn't have. Amazing deck. And then, as it also turned out, I ended up forming the Gorbachev Foundation for Gorbachev. So I got into a relationship with Gorbachev that also lasted about 15 years.
Wow.
Got to know his wife, Mesa, very closely. He and I and 3 other guys started the Gorbachev Foundation together. It's a long story and all the things I did with him and how. And I haven't seen him now for quite some time. He's passed away, as you probably know.
Wow.
And before he passed, he became very reclusive because when Raisa died, he really took the wind out of his sails. Raisa was the power. She was an amazing. If somebody wants to know the true story of how did Gorbachev get to be premier, why did he decide to take the Soviet Union apart? Great stories, things that he told me that are really amazing. So here I am. I think the only person in the world who's ever had the opportunity to work really closely with Mother Teresa and Gorbachev. I don't think anybody else ever had that because everybody in the Mother Teresa world is one kind of world, and the Gorbachev.
Right.
I share that because it wasn't about me. It was about asking the right question. If there was anybody in the world I could help, who would it be? And I meant it. I would do it. And as soon as the answer came, well, if Mother Teresa knocked on my door, I'd say, well, how can I help? And if Gorbachev knocked on my door, I'd say, how can I help? And they both did. And so, did it make me any money? No. Did it prove to be the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life?
100%.
Yes. Short of marrying my wife. No, but so it's like you don't know what the answer is going to be if you ask the right question, but it could really blow you away.
Yeah.
I'm always profoundly grateful and humbled by being able to work for those 2 people. I mean, that's great work. If you you can get a job helping people do anything. It's like, like you want to do the laundry for you. I mean, these are people that anything you can do, you're helping them
Yeah.
shift global consciousness, not just different pieces on the game board.
What a conversation. Point, I'm still wondering whether we are talking about climate or we're talking about life, because there's a little bit of everything in there.
No, David, we're talking about both at the same time.
Yep,
'Cause they are the same.
exactly. No, Ronaldo, I want to ask you, I will not forgive myself if I do not ask you this question. After all these years of asking questions and trying to get real solutions to happen, you've been asking yourself questions and trying to find the turning point in solving the climate issue. Today, I see the young people or people trying to bring change going through a certain series in their life. There is something they now called eco anxiety, and they get to that point where they are so worried about the questions they are asking that they cannot actually find solutions, but they are actually brought down by the magnitude of the challenge. And I think you mentioned that previously in this conversation when you said people are actually not driven to find solutions because they think it's just like a huge mountain that they can never climb, right? What was that turning point for you such that you were not overwhelmed by the magnitude of the situation, but rather looking for change?
Well, first of all, I mean, I can tell you, but it's not a moment. It's a series of moments. If you think of life as a discipline, and if you think of yourself as an athlete training to do the best at that discipline, to run that race the fastest or to jump the highest or whatever it is, you don't see like a high jumper that clears 16 feet for the first time. He doesn't see that as the end. And that's how I am with questions. I'm not trying to get to the last answer. I'm just trying to get to the next question. And some of the questions, yeah, you see, because again, that's future tripping. Like I'm not smart enough to figure out where it's all going to end up. All I can do is work on the next piece in front of me and hope
Yeah.
it works out well for me and the people I love and the planet. But we're talking about the biosphere, and you probably are familiar with what's called Gaia theory, right? Okay, the Earth is a mother.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in Gaia theory. The biosphere is one planetary organism, and we're part of it. We're not meant to be the masters of the universe, which was what Copernicus finally got the church to understand. Okay, and that same thing is true in the environment. We are not here to master the environment. We are here to serve the environment because the environment serves us. It is our home. It's our umbilical cord. It is the lungs. It's the air we breathe. It's the water we drink. It's the food we eat. It's the way it protects and preserves the people we care about. And when you don't see the biosphere as this dynamic consciousness, this whole holistic thing that is not just the animals and the trees and the plants on it, but it's all of it working together in unison, in harmony, I get it. Well, we broke that bond. We broke that. And the result is that by breaking it, we've now hurt ourselves so bad because the biosphere that wants to support us can't, because we keep destroying it. Here's a prediction most people are afraid to make. It's clearly true. Number one, if we went to zero carbon dioxide emissions tomorrow morning, it's too late because we've already crossed the tipping point with methane.
That's it.
So ain't going to help. You can go to zero, not going to do it. What's got to happen is we've got to reverse methane, because methane is the silent killer that will destroy the planet and the human civilization as we know it. And it will do it through a series of initial steps. It sends us warnings. So the warning is, do you really think it's good that the icebergs are all melting? Do you think that the oceans are rising is a good thing? Do you think the storms we're experiencing is a good thing? No. And they're getting progressively worse every year. And the temperature of the oceans getting higher every year. The temperature of the earth getting higher every year. So what you're talking about is evidence is all over the place that we've already really badly hurt the biosphere to the point where slowing the hurt down is no longer the goal. The goal is to reverse the hurt. It's to heal the damage we have done. We must do that, because if we don't do that, we as a species will not survive as you know us.
Yeah.
Does that mean some of us won't survive? Yeah, some of us will probably survive. I mean, there'll be pockets of humans, I suspect, but not many. Not many the way it's going. And if you want, I can actually, I don't want to do this and scare all the people listening to this call, but I can tell you exactly how it's going to happen and what's going to go first and what's going to go second and what's going to go. It's not a pleasant scenario.
Yeah.
And nothing that I'm predicting is a stretch. In fact, it's all, as I said, the data's there. And when we updated the 2019 data, the 2025 data, it not only correlated, it went further. It turned out I was conservative in 2019. My reason for saying that is it's no longer optional to look at healing the planet as if it's a spectator sport. Okay. You are in the game whether you know it or not. And if you're in the game, you better play it. Because if you just sit in the stands, wait to see what happens, you can just kiss your sweet, you know what, goodbye. Because you ain't gonna make it. You just aren't gonna make it. And it's amazing to me how many people live in the denial.
Right.
That how they can ignore it, it'll go away, somehow it'll solve itself, some BS. And the truth is, that's all BS. It will not solve itself. We have hurt the biosphere so badly, it is no longer self-repairing. We've got to give it a shot. Now, let me give an example, just to give people an example of something positive. We had this terrible problem with the hole in the ozone. And everybody said, oh my God, we can't stop that. And the scientific community said, well, if you don't, you're all going to have a lot of radiation because that's what's coming through the hole. And within 12 years, we reversed it. And now the hole's practically invisible. So we did it.
Yeah.
And that was less dangerous than what we're doing today.
That's it.
But we can't get the same alliance at the government level, nations, that we did back then. Why? The Hindus would say, because we're going through Kali Yuga. We've got to the stage of evolution and consciousness where you have to go through destruction and rebirth. So welcome to the destruction phase. That's what we're seeing. Rebirth would be kind of easy if a few of the major obstacles were cleared away. So Europe is starting to rebirth itself as an independent entity, no longer an appendage of the United States. They didn't want to do that. And if you didn't hear about the report that came out yesterday, the Europeans fully told the truth that it's nuts. I mean, America's unreliable. It's run by a maniac. The guy's destroying himself and half the planet. And what are we going to do about this? Well, all we can do is get stronger ourselves, right? So the entire world order since 1945, which was monopolar in the tent, which was the U.S. is now multipolar. So the Chinese, a little over a week ago, announced publicly the renminbi is going to be a reserve currency to challenge the dollar. They don't think it'll replace dollar. It'll be a challenge. It'll be an option now. And the euro clearly is an option. And I think there's going to be a fourth currency before too long. But those three currencies will be collectively controlling international finance to the extent that it exists at all, because climate change can take the whole game. But to the extent it continues to exist in human civilization, we will have these three poles. Now, why that's so critical is, as soon as the U.S. ceases to be the reserve currency, the sole reserve currency, the dollar will slide so fast that the people in this country won't believe how bad they got thrown into a tremendously chaotic economic situation. And the countries like Europe, who are seeing past that collapse. See, the U.S. isn't seeing that collapse. Europeans are. So they're preparing for it. And they're saying, we don't care for the Chinese that much, but the Chinese aren't crazy. And they see they got to change. They're the leading country in the world now for solar energy. They're the leading country in the world for renewables. Okay, leading country in the world in electric cars. We'll just link up with the Chinese and the heck with the Americans.
That's it.
You'll see even, and if you didn't see it, anybody listening to this should go get a copy of Mark Rutte's, the Prime Minister of Canada. His speech at Davos was the main event at Davos, because what he said, and it's correct, the relationship between the U.S. and the world has ruptured. That's a big word. It's not like it's been damaged. It's ruptured. It's gone. So now what's going to replace it is all these countries in the world are starting to work out how to live in the world the U.S. created for its own self, and now they got to see the U.S. is not part of it. So ASEAN, which we started the ASEAN conference, we don't even belong to it anymore. Obviously, We're not playing a significant role in NATO, even though we started that. And I could go on and on. Okay. US aid that was our game. It's gone. And you're going to see millions and millions of people die from all that. I don't know that that'll be enough to change the trajectory for America. I think something more fundamental has to happen for America to change direction. And it very well may. And if anybody is going to hold up a mirror to the American consciousness, the psychology of America, and say, is this who you want to be? That would be Trump. He's making it very clear. Is this who we are? And I don't think that most people think that's who we are. I think that's probably a view of 25 to 30% at most. Because that view is racist, misogynistic, militant, violent. I mean, it's got all these characteristics, which I don't believe are the core values of the American public. So holding that mirror up to us and say, is this really who you want to be? Is going to give us a chance once again to choose. And if we choose correctly, because we ask the right question, is this who we want to be? And the answer clearly is no. If we ask that question and we answer it honestly, the whole thing will change. And it will change much faster than people think. Because it took a long time for Trump to tear this all down. And it'll take a long time to rebuild it, but it will be rebuilt. And I think it'll be rebuilt at a higher level, if you want to.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Our time is fast spent, and I would love to deep dive. I think there's definitely going to be a follow-up on this conversation. We need to do a follow-up. There was one thing that you mentioned that really struck me. I think that's going to be my last question this conversation, about carrying everyone along with this education and awareness. And I'm sure you face this a lot in your career. What do you think is the best way to get everyone? I mean, we cannot get everyone along this, but most people, because you mentioned that whether we like it or not, we need to reverse all the things that we have done to the planet. But then, with the examples that you are given right now, policies are sort of coming against our actions against aviation and stuff like that. How do we get to carry everyone along? Government, industries, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't. Start with you don't. We're not here to save everybody. We're here to give people choices. You know? Yeah, it really is, because Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist, said, no, don't ever doubt that a small group of committed people can change the history of the world. In fact, that's all it ever has. So the idea is, it's not like you got to get everybody, you just have to get the tipping point. Some people think that's 15%. I don't. One of the beliefs. If you look at one of today's largest questions, it is, what percent of people are MAGA, for example? The answer is probably 25%. Which means 75% aren't, but that 75% is letting MAGA define how the rest of it. Why? Fear, power, mob tactics, same things that happened in the 30s with Mussolini, not much different. So if we're not bad Americans, if there's enough of us that care, then it could very well be we can reconstruct it in a vision that's more like what we love than what we hate or fear. I'll give you one example. So the No King's March is coming up again now on March 28th, okay? Many people say that if 3.5% of the population turns to a different viewpoint, the society will change. I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly true of 15%. Well, what would 3.5% look like? It would only look like 10.5 million people. And we had 9 million last time. So getting to 10.5 million should not be a big stretch. And I do believe it will be successful. And I think the Trump administration will continue to unravel. Now, as you know from our prior call, I am not a Democrat. Don't want to be. I'm very upset with Democrats who don't know the truth. Gutless. As an independent for 35, 40 years, I'm delighted to see something as immoral, illegal, and vicious as the Trump administration come to an end. It is absolutely an aberration. It is not what America is about. And we must bring an end to it And that's not about Republicans. It's not about Democrats. It's about, okay. And if you noticed, within the last month, the number of people who identified as independent now exceeds the combined total of Republicans and
Right.
Democrats. Because everybody's dropping out of the party
That's it.
structure, which is actually could be a really good
Yeah.
thing. And maybe when we look back on this and we end up in a safe harbor, God willing, we'll say, oh, now I get why we needed Trump. We need to kick ourselves in the butt to get on with it because we kept backsliding.
Yeah.
No, why is this country having a conversation about race in the year 2026? That is nuts.
Right.
That's not just an argument. That's not a discussion. It's crazy. It's just plain crazy. Why are we having an honest discussion with the Christian nationalists that women should lose the vote? That's just crazy.
That's it.
I mean, I could go on and on. Why are we having a discussion about whether or not children in this country are entitled to food? SNAP Act. That's crazy. Why are we arguing about the benefits of early childhood education?
Yeah.
There's no opposite to that. It's crazy. So if you look at what motivates people, and they can come up with these unbelievably crazy positions, and they are crazy, you have to say, okay, well, what if there's enough of us that just don't want that? What if enough of us choose to be the country we want to be, not the country we fear? And if we do, then we can do that on a global level.
Wow. I'm just going to leave the listeners to unpack this. I'm going to join them to unpack all of these things. Thanks so much for joining me today on the show. It's been a remarkable conversation, and I really have to go over this over and over. Just sort of let some of these things sink and act towards it. Before I let you go, I have a quick question. I don't know whether you feel very optimistic about our direction that we're going. Do you think we will ever get to a point where we solve the climate problem? I just want a yes or a no.
No, I think the paper I wrote in 2019 actually
Yeah,
is
I read it.
the solution. And I believe it would work. I've seen nothing to indicate that it won't. So, and it's not that expensive to do. And it's,
That's it.
Essentially. So yeah, climate change is, you deal with a thing called earth shades. And since I wrote that paper, there've been a number of independent studies that come out that validate. So I know, I think we just have to do earth shades. We have to keep the temperature of the oceans down. Fact.
Yeah.
And that's easy to do. And we have to do it in a way that we can reverse it as soon as we want, so we don't create an ice age.
Yeah.
So that's the paper. And so if anybody wants to read the paper, it's called the Methane Accelerator, and it's on the worldbusiness.org site.
Definitely going to be in the show notes as well. So if you do want to read it, just go down into the show notes. And my last question to you is, what does sustainability mean to you?
I tell you what, I'm going to give you the short answer. The long answer, I just published.
No way.
Sustainable Business did a retrospective of 2025, and they asked me to write the op-ed for it. So I did. It just got published a couple of weeks ago.
I'm going to add
The
it.
short, yeah. And if you can't find it, Shannon will get it for you. The short answer is this. It's not just about the environment. That's what people think. Sustainability is about thinking of sustainable systems on all levels. So that's the environment. How do we sustain having clean water? How do we sustain having glaciers? How do we sustain a society where the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer? That's not sustainable. So if I look at any facet of human existence, the word sustainability means, is this system going in a way that sustains, or is it one that's doing entropy? It's slowing down and dying. And I look for syntropy, what's building.
Ooh.
And so the answer to sustainability is the nature of syntropy in action.
Interesting. I haven't got this before.
No, I haven't either. I just said that for the first time.
Interesting.
It just happened in the moment. Yeah, syntropy in action is what sustainability.
That's it. Interesting. Rinaldo, I so appreciate your time, and I cannot wait to get this thing out. Really thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'm really looking forward to a follow-up. We should do a follow-up.
Absolutely. Glad to talk to you, David.